Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to the Healthcare Marketing Hall of Fame luncheon. We have a few items to take care of before we move on to the Hall of Fame proceedings. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank IMS Brogan, Chronicle Group of Companies, and Pangaea for putting together a fairly robust National Pharmaceutical Congress this morning. I think the purpose of our Congress, we all know that it's structured to be what I consider a cross between an academic meeting and speed dating. So if you come to these congresses with an expectation that you're going to get a thorough comprehension of a particular topic, no, but you will always leave with one or two or three golden nuggets, and you'll know who to follow up with when you leave. And that's really the purpose of putting together this day for all of us, which have very, very busy schedules. We want to make sure we're not wasting your time. So thank you once again for organizing a great meeting. Every year, Mitch asks us to put down our follow-up comments and looking for continuous improvement. And just to prove to you that the Chronicle Group of Companies and AL does listen to your comments, every year they're asked, where do you get this music? And in the back of your binders, you have a full listing of all of the music, and under the heading, the world's only rock and roll driven pharmaceutical industry conference. So you have it all here, and certainly with the internet, you'll be no problem sourcing all the items. I think the most interesting thing that we learned today was that despite popular misconception, Mitch does not have a propensity for heroin addiction. That really came as a big surprise to me up there, but it's nice to know. I'm feeling a bit comfortable. We do, however, have one piece of unfinished business, and we do have a check to be given to the RX&D as a result of today's conference, and I'd like to call upon Mitch Shannon from the Chronicle and Joe Knott from Pangaea to award the check.
Again, as was said earlier, this is a non-profit event itself that of giving something back to the industry. So Mitch and I, any profit left over, we donate to the RX&D Health Research Foundation. So Ronnie, on behalf of all of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure.
And thanks, Ronnie, for accepting on behalf of the RX&D. Now, ladies and gentlemen, while the meal is being served, we will move forward with the ceremonies today in an attempt to end on time and get people to their airports. Right at the onset, I would like to thank the sponsors who made this possible. So along with IMS Brogan, the Chronicle Group of Companies, and Pangaea, I do want to thank Antibody, Astellas, Lundbeck, KBSB, Medica Graphics, Roche, and STI. Thank you very much for sponsoring this event. As many of you who have been here before, you may have recognized me as somewhat of a familiar face. I've had the privilege and honor of being the Master of Ceremonies now for this will be my fourth year. I do believe in this event quite seriously. We do know that people tend to give this acknowledgement on their resumes, their LinkedIn, their Facebook pages, business cards. But we also, recently a good friend of mine, unfortunately, had it included in a eulogy. So it does mean a lot to a lot of people. Being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think, is extra special because you're nominated by a jury of your peers and voted on by the nomination committee. And it's an opportunity just to acknowledge certain individuals. First of all, there's no such thing as a bad marketer in our industry. It's just not viable. Given the economic and political culture, all of us are good, and you have to be more than just good just to survive. So congratulations on that. But if you've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto or the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown or any of the Hall of Fames, you soon realize that the Hall of Fame is not necessarily dedicated only to the people who play the game. It's dedicated to individuals who advance the sport and who protect the integrity of the sport. And that's why the Healthcare Marketing Hall of Fame acknowledges the efforts from a variety of individuals. We recognize individuals from our regulatory affairs departments, which are critical to having a successful marketing campaign. People in market access, suppliers, CHE groups, and others. We also recognize key physician groups and many of our other partners, all of whom play critical roles to the advancement of the healthcare industry and to do so in a professional manner which protects the integrity of our industry. We've acknowledged people such as Rachel Pesiak from PAB, and many, many others. So congratulations to all, and we will acknowledge some of our past inductees who are with us this afternoon as well. The first inductee is a dermatologist from Vancouver, Dr. Stuart Madden. Dr. Stuart Madden is the only person who I have any regular business dealings with who has children that have already retired. The other thing about Dr. Madden, he's the only person I know, and probably one of a very select few people on this earth, who is in more than one Hall of Fame. Dr. Madden is a big supporter of amateur sport. He represented Canada in the Olympic Games a number of years ago as a runner on our track and field team a few years ago. Dr. Madden has been actively involved in men's swimming in particular, and in a variety of roles, including most recently he was the chef de mission for the men's aquatic team for the Pan American Games. And as a result, if you're ever in Ottawa and you go to the National Aquatic Hall of Fame, you will see Dr. Madden acknowledged in that Hall of Fame as well. And it's indeed an honor for me to call upon Dr. Chuck Lind, a dermatologist from Markham and a professor from the University of Toronto, to present to Dr. Madden. Dr. Lind.
Thank you very much, Lauren. It's an extreme pleasure to be able to give this award to a person that I met many years ago when I was much younger, and he was already ready to retire at that time, but he's never going to retire, I don't think. So I had the good fortune of training in UBC. I met him, and he became a mentor, and he's become a mentor to myself and most Canadian dermatologists over the years. We affectionately call him the godfather of dermatology, and he's always a fountain of youth. He always has new ideas. I was asked to give a little quick speech, and it's very hard to distill down a curriculum vitae that's kind of like that into a 2-minute thing. But I will try to highlight a few different things. So Dr. Madden is the clinical professor emeritus at the Department of Dermatology and Skin Science Dermatology at UBC, and I'm going to say active. He still goes to the office every day. He's not seeing patients, but he's there directing, and he's the director of the clinical research unit there, and he's kind of the man behind the scenes. He's served as the advisory capacity of the Health Protection Branch in Ottawa, the U.S. Pharmacia, Rockville, Maryland, the Essential Drugs for the World Health Organization, as well as the AAD, which is the American Academy of Dermatology, the FDA. He's also been a member of the board of directors of the American Academy of Dermatology. He's been the secretary and also the president of the Canadian Dermatology Association, was also the vice president of the American Dermatology Association. These are all top-level jobs, very hard for a Canadian to actually achieve many of these high-level jobs, if you would. He was the first Canadian to be elected to the International Committee of Dermatology and later appointed as the Secretary General to the International League of Dermatologists. He was a founding member of the Regional Dermatology Training Center in Tanzania. So these are all kind of firsts. As you heard, he's been inducted into the Swimming Hall of Fame, and it's a great pleasure that he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame here. I want to also just mention that he's also the editor-in-chief of the Skin Therapy Letter, which is in its 16th year. Dr. Madden, I'm going to share a thing with them that you're 90 years old. So if you do the math, he started a whole new thing on the internet and a publication just a few years ago, and that's blossomed into one of the major sort of bulletins and letters that goes around the world. It has an app, and he's the guy that thought, well, we should have an app for this. So he keeps on going things. He's the founder and director of the Dermatology Update, which is going to be in its 27th year, and it's going to be held in Montreal in September. So it's with great pleasure that I present this award. He certainly is deserving of it. Even at age 90, he gives 150%. And I've tried to emulate him, but I'm still only about 100%. So, Stuart. Thank you.
I was warned that I had very few minutes in which to say anything. Now, there are three things I want to say. First of all, to thank the Board of Governors of the Hall of Fame for having passed and agreed that I could be entered. A real honor, and thank you. I also want to thank Chuck, who just delivered a summary of my past. Now, the thing that I want to make very certain that I'm able to leave with you today is simply this, that as a physician, as a dermatologist, I realize that without the effort, the business acumen, and the research effort that has gone into your part of the industry, we as dermatologists would have precious little to give our patients. Now, every now and again, that partnership is forgotten. And I'm merely trying this afternoon to make certain that I reestablish that connection. The other thing, I'm going to tell a very quick story. As a small boy in Saskatchewan, from a very small town north of Regina, my father had a drugstore. And from a very early age, I hung around the drugstore. I swept the floors. When a little older, I did the windows. But I got to meet people called reps. And I can always remember at about the age of 7 or 8, a company called Charles Frost, and the gentleman gave me a bottle of maple syrup. And he said that my father was a good customer and I was a nice boy and I was to take this home. And I never realized at the time that that was the first time in my life that I'd ever tasted maple syrup. So the Dingbat calendar that Charles Frost has, when I see it on occasion in old drugstores or in memento areas, my mind does go back. Having said that, I again want to thank all of you for this honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
Talk about a tough act to follow. I will share with you one thing. I mean, we did establish that Dr. Madden has had his 90th year, but I do have a theory as to why he's so young. He drives a car that I covet. He drives a 2009 Porsche Carrera 4S Cabriolet with a stick shift. So you know what kind of guy you're dealing with here. And just so your ego doesn't get out of check, Dr. Madden, we recently were at a birthday party where his wife says, behind every successful man is a surprised wife. Yeah. The next recipient of being inducted into the Hall of Fame today is the Vice President of Medical and Regulatory Affairs from Roche, Lorenzo Biondi, and presenting to Lorenzo is the CEO of Hoffman LaRoche, Ronnie Miller.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. First of all, before I introduce Lorenzo, I just want to say thank you for the very generous donation to the RX&D. And on behalf of the Russell Williams and the Board of Directors, I didn't want to make two speeches, so I'll combine two into one. So, Good afternoon. I promise to be very, very quick and stay within the 2 minutes. It's a pleasure and a great privilege to introduce my colleague, Lorenzo. I've known him personally for more than 15 years through my global roles with Roche, and I can tell you it's a recognition that's thoroughly well deserved. He is, in my eyes and the eyes of his peers and colleagues and many ex-colleagues in this room, a very knowledgeable and grounded leader, someone that's seen the wheel turn a few times, maybe not as many times as Dr. Madden, but a few times nonetheless. And he's very passionate about the industry, giving back to the industry and helping the community. Lorenzo's industry involvement is numerous, but he's a pharmacist by training. His career in the industry spans almost 30 years, and he could have worked globally many, many times for Roche, but because of his family interests and love, he chose to remain and focus in Canada, and to that, we're very, very thankful. During his tenure at Roche, he helped bring to market a number of our key products, and he has seen an evolution of not only the company, but the industry from benzodiazepines back in the 60s and 70s, through antibiotics, cardiovasculars, Accutane, Dr. Madden, and through to the modern biotechnology drugs, which makes us really a biotechnology company today. He's also very active as a volunteer. He's currently a member of the RX&D Medical and Clinical Subcommittee and Industry Practices Review Committee, and I would say that the giving of a maple syrup to any customer is completely banned and contrary to the guidelines. He's also on PAB's executive and board of directors and has held a number of senior appointments at Biotech Canada and the Canadian Association of Professional Regulatory Affairs. His calm demeanor makes him a natural mentor, and he's mentored a lot of people within Roche Canada who have gone to work globally within the company. He's also, for the past 5 years, taught at the University of Toronto Pharmacy School and very much part of their intern program. He's also served since 2007 as a member of the board of directors of Halton Healthcare Services, and he shares his management experience often back in to help us with our own strategic planning and our own quality committee. Now, quickly, 2 or 3 anecdotes to share with you about Lorenzo. I remember being in training course with him at INSEAD in Paris in France, and we had to give some very delicate feedback to our then CEO, present chairman, Franz Humer. And a bunch of aggressive marketeers decided that the only way to do this constructive criticism was to give it to a very strong regulator who did it in a very calm, unhurried, and unimpassioned, I would say, but direct way. We thank you for that. We all kept our jobs because of that delicate feedback. Also, Peter Proctor, who's our old CFO, does remember an occasion in Las Vegas where he and Lorenzo stumbled into what in fact turned out to be Erotica.com's annual conference. First of all, they were surprised about the free drinks, but when the couple coming down live in the cage copulating, Lorenzo and Peter immediately left the room lest the Globe and Mail were taking any photographs on behalf of the industry. I'd like to see the photographs of that night, though, personally. And then finally, Nabil Hanin, who's Lorenzo's colleague for many years in regulatory. Lorenzo has got bad luck because he holds his conference, his team conference every year in the fall, and it's usually poisoned by bad weather. And I think the worst possible time with a new president who arrived from Scotland who insisted on playing golf. Nabil and Lorenzo and myself and Rose went out through a hailstorm, but we played the 18 holes, and I'm very proud I managed to motivate them to do that. So listen, I'm very happy to welcome Lorenzo on behalf of all of us. Lorenzo, you well deserve it. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks very much, Ronnie. You never know what Ronnie will say and then what you can say when you get on stage. But that wasn't too bad, I would imagine, other than, I guess, the picture that was up there. I also have to thank Pangea, IMS Brogan, and the Chronicles Company for selecting me this year as one of the recipients of the Healthcare Marketing Hall of Fame Award. It is really a testament to the selection committee to award this to an individual who has really not built their career in the traditional limelight in marketing. And I guess it would speak to the fact that there's a recognition that there is more to marketing than just what we traditionally know of that. And one of my colleagues would call that big M marketing. When you span, or when you have a career that spans almost 3 decades, although again it's not as long as Dr. Madden's, but when when a career spans 3 decades, there's a lot of individuals that you really owe thanks to. And I want to recognize 4 individuals, although they're no longer with us, that were instrumental very early in my career. Crystal Letkowski was bold enough to hire me right out of graduate school. Andre Longes introduced me to both drug development and regulatory affairs. Dr. Don Zeroni, who was our medical director at the time, taught me how to interpret preclinical and clinical data and also how to critique it. And finally, most importantly, Don Brown, our CEO at the time, decided to, or asked me to lead a department, and that kind of got my career started. Longevity in a career really takes at least 3 essential elements, if not more. It also takes a lot of luck in my view. The first is the very strong support from the individuals that you're given the privilege to lead. The second is a strong collaboration from individuals that are your colleagues, that together are tasked with the goal of leading an organization towards a common endpoint or a common goal. And finally, the third is to have a leader that that trusts you and supports you. And you've already met Ronnie, and Ronnie has provided this to me for the last, or actually over 10 years now. I want to thank each and every one of you. A large group of these individuals have joined me today, and they're actually sitting in the front tables here. So thank you very much. It's been an unforgettable ride. What's also interesting to note is that there's also a number of colleagues who were ex-Roche that are also in this audience, and thank you also for the relationships that we've had over the years. Can't forget to thank my wife, Otilia, who has joined me today, for tolerating the time that I've spent either doing things like emails or reading binders of materials, most recently for the board of directors. I think that is obviously something that I treasure a lot, so thank you very much for that tolerance, Otilia. I've had a very unique opportunity in my career because I've helped with the evolution of a company that started its business in the general practitioner market with traditional products, and over time it evolved into a specialty care market with biotechnology products. We brought to market some products that have truly had life-altering effects on individuals, and as a result of that, we've had a genuine impact on Canadians, and of that I'm extremely proud. I've seen a lot of change in the industry, and I'm sure that you have also, and as a result of that, it means that we're going to have to change the way that we operate. The ability to just continue to add resources or add additional dollars to try to run our businesses, I think, is no longer viable, and as a result of that, we're going to have to think of doing it in more innovative, flexible ways, and also consider alternative resource models. Having said that, there's great opportunities given the aging population, and I think that leaders that are willing to look at different methods of pursuing business will be very successful. Individuals in this industry will have great challenge, and I think they also will have to be learners, and they will have to be leaders of change. Once again, thank you very much for this wonderful award, and I wish you all long and successful careers in this industry.
For those of you who were at the conference earlier, you heard Thomas Schlater of Valiant say that Valiant was an exhilarating place to work. But exhausting is actually really an appropriate adjective for marketing. And I think the old line that says, if you don't know what to say, say everything, holds true. But it takes a lot of work to distill it down to the most important comments and the ability to simplify the message. And I think that's one of the things that I share with the next inductee, James Cron, who's the founder of Antibody, whose simplicity message we all know and clear. Just want to acknowledge that we unfortunately did lose somebody last year. Unfortunately, Michael Paul, the creative director and co-founder of Antibody, passed away last year. Just want to take this a moment to acknowledge him. Sure, James wishes he was here as well. So I'd like to call upon Nicole Rajakovic, the product service director of Antibody.
Good afternoon, everyone. I remember the first day that I met James Cran. He was heading up an exciting new pharma agency, and with his first piece of new business secured, he needed to hire. Upon meeting James, I was immediately struck by his passion for healthcare and enthusiasm for building a successful communications agency that gets it. I was especially impressed that he showcases extreme enthusiasm before 8 a.m. His interest in creating an agency of successful, motivated, and happy people sold me on joining his current team of 2. As many people in the room know, James Cran started off his impressive pharmaceutical career as a sales rep. He quickly moved his way up into product management, where his sales savvy and marketing insights helped create the success of a number of brands, including the blockbuster Paxil. After 15 years of success within pharmaceutical companies, James took a big risk and decided to head into a new career direction, the agency side. Alongside the infamous creative director Michael Paul, James created Antibody Healthcare Communications. Since its birth, the agency has launched over 40 brands, has grown from the staff of 2 to over 50. Antibody landed its first piece of business in the first 2 months, and it was actually Hoffman LaRoche. And in 2008, Pharma Marketers named Antibody Agency of the Year. 8 years later, I'm glad that James sold me on taking the risk of joining an agency with only 2 people and 1 client. He gave me the opportunity to be part of an incredible organization and empowered me to help grow it. For the last 8 years, I've had the pleasure and the honor of working alongside one of Pharma's greatest salesmen and marketers. A dynamic personality that always encourages those around him to succeed. James not only brings the big ideas to the clients, but he provides his teams with the tools and, more importantly, the trust to achieve our clients' goals and our own. A born marketer, he brings his passion for marketing, healthcare, and people to everything he does every day. Please join me in congratulating James Cran as a new member of the Canadian Healthcare Marketing Hall of Fame.